Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 unbelievable coincidences that will leave you confused. Sometimes it seems like there's someone out there watching over us, writing our lives. If you've ever had a coincidence happen to you and thought it was amazing, I'm sure it won't compare to these creepy, amazing, and mind-blowing coincidences. But before we get into it, be sure to subscribe and press the notification bell too. Coming in at number 10, we have Enzo and Ozil. This is a very simple yet odd coincidence. Enzo Ferrari was the founder of the sports car company Ferrari. He died in 1988, but in 1988, Mesut Ozil was born. You may be wondering what these two have in common, as one is a soccer star and the other is a car company founder. Well, check out these two side by side and it really does seem like they're related in some way. They have the same deep eyes and facial characteristics. Also, the fact that one died in 1988 and the other was born that same year has led to some saying this is an example of reincarnation. Do you agree, or is this just one amazing coincidence? Next up is Lincoln and Kennedy. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy were both US presidents who were assassinated, but there are some amazing coincidences in their lives. They were both slain on a Friday in the presence of their wives. They were both shot from behind in the head. Their successors were both named Johnson and were both Democrats. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy and advised him not to go to the theater. Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln and advised him not to go to Dallas. Lincoln's assassin shot him in a theater and ran to a warehouse. Kennedy's assassin shot him from a warehouse and ran to a theater. Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater. The car Kennedy was shot in was a Ford Lincoln. And believe it or not, there are many more coincidences about these two. Did history repeat itself here? It sure seems so. Next up is Taxi. One day in Bermuda, a kid named Erskine Lawrence Eben was riding his moped when he was hit by a taxi. But on the same day the year before, his brother Neville had been 17 too and riding the same moped. He was hit by the same taxi with the same driver on the same street. And the taxi was even carrying the same passenger. It really does seem like history has repeated itself here. It is now known as the Bermuda taxi coincidence and is very famous. We all know that the Bermuda Triangle is very mysterious, but I think the Bermuda taxi coincidence is even more amazing. Next up is Edgar Allan Poe's time machine. This is one crazy coincidence which has led to many people believing that a famous American author named Edgar Allan Poe is a time traveler. One of Poe's books is called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Jim of Nantucket. The story is 4 sailors have survived a sinking ship, and in order to survive they had to eat a shipboy named Richard Parker. Poe claimed this was based on real events, but it was later found it wasn't. However, 46 years after the book was written, a boat did sink. 4 of the crew members survived, and they said in order to do so they had to eat a shipboy named Richard Parker. This led to many people believing that Edgar Allan Poe owned a time machine. Do you think Poe really was a time traveler, or is this just a crazy coincidence? Next up is Lost Book. Have you ever lost something and found it in an odd place? Well, get ready for this insane coincidence. One day, the actor Anthony Hopkins was studying a movie role. To study it, he needed a book called The Girl from Petrovka by George Pfeiffer. He couldn't find a copy in any shop, so he sent a letter to George asking for a copy. However, that same day, Anthony found a copy of the book on the train. He later met with George, and George said, "Sorry, I don't have any more copies of my book. I gave my last one to a friend who left it on a train." How amazing is it that Anthony happened to come across the exact copy that had been left on the train? Next up is Eminem. This is another crazy lookalike coincidence. We all know that Slim Shady or Eminem is one of the most successful rappers of all time. He has a very distinct look. But recently, some have pointed out that he's the spitting image of Alexander Severus. Alexander Severus was the emperor of Rome from the years 222 to 235. However, he has the exact facial structure of Eminem. His eyes, mouth, and nose seem to match perfectly, and his hair's even similar. This has led to some calling Eminem a time traveler or immortal. That would explain why he can rap so fast, seeing as he's had over 2,000 years of practice. Seriously though, do you think that Eminem and Alexander Severus have anything in common or not? Next up is Titanic. We all know about the Titanic. It was a massive ship that sunk by an iceberg. Nobody saw it coming, and the Titanic was even called unsinkable by some. However, in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic sank, Morgan Robertson, who was a fantasy writer, wrote a book called Futility. The book was about a ship called the Titan, which was said to be unsinkable. However, the Titan sank, but the similarities don't end there. The Titan also didn't have enough lifeboats, and it even had a similar structure technically to the Titanic. And the way the Titan sank was the same as the Titanic, hitting an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. This has led to some saying that Morgan Robertson predicted the Titanic. What do you think? Next up is 2 cars. Back in 1895, there were only a few cars as they were just starting to be manufactured. In the state of Ohio, car production had just begun, and as a result, in 1895, there were only 2 cars in the whole of Ohio. That's why it's amazing to hear that these 2 cars crashed into each other. Despite there only being 2 cars in the whole state, the cars seem to crash into each other. Were these cars actually magnets just pulling each other closer? It seems impossible that the only 2 cars in the state would meet, let alone crash into each other, especially as back then the roads were just dirt paths, and they were pretty much no boundaries. This really is a crazy coincidence. Next up is Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam is located in Colorado and is one of the biggest dams in the world. But back when it was being made in the 1930s, a crazy coincidence came about. While it was being built in the 7 years it took, 96 people passed away. The first person to pass away while building the Hoover Dam was called George Turney in 1931. However, in 1936, the last person to die was Patrick Turney, who was George's son. Wow, the Turney family must have really not liked the Hoover Dam at all. I'm surprised his son kept working on this after his dad died building it. Nevertheless, this is one pretty astonishing coincidence. Next up is Trump Simpson. Unless you've just been released from a North Korean prison, I'm sure you know that Donald Trump is the President of the United States. It may seem normal now, but it's something nobody would have expected 18 years ago. Well, in the year 2000, The Simpsons released an episode called Bart to the Future. In the episode, Bart travels into the future, and during that time, Trump has become president. The weird thing is, the episode aired in 2000, and Bart was supposed to have gone 16 years into the future. That would make Bart be in the year 2016, which is the same year Trump won the presidency. However, the episode didn't just predict Trump becoming president, it seems like Matt Groening himself has written time, as some things in the episode were just too uncanny. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most amazing coincidence on this list. And be sure to check out my second channel, The Crafty. There'll be a link to The Crafty on screen in a moment, so click it to check it out. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more of those on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, what you're waiting for, subscribe to Top 10s.